This is Dane Ciolino from the Loyola University New Orleans College of Law, and welcome to this brief video on using Microsoft Word. Why discuss this issue? I mean, after all, you're thinking, I've used Microsoft Word for decades, some of you, or at least a decade. You probably used Microsoft Word when you were in elementary school. True, but you are going to use Microsoft Word every day now for the rest of your professional life. Why? Because it's a lawyer's principal tool. Carpenter probably principally uses a tape measure and a hammer. An electrician uses screwdrivers, electrical tape, wires, strippers. Your primary tool as a lawyer is Microsoft Word. So if you were a carpenter, you'd really want to know how to use the tools of your trade. As a lawyer, you need to know how to use this tool. Not just use it, not just be good at it, but to be proficient with it, to be an expert at all things Microsoft Word. Looks matter in what you submit to courts and to opponents and to clients. I talk over and over again about how persuasion, it's not just me, it's Aristotle, has talked long about how persuasion is all about ethos, pathos, logos. The logic in your brief comes from the words and the structure of the paragraphs, the citations to facts and to authorities. But the ethos, this is the personal advocacy. This is you as a believable, trustworthy, knowledgeable lawyer. That is what Aristotle said is one of the most important, if not the most important, pillar of a good advocate. So you want your written work, your briefs, your memos, your letters to look impeccable because it matters to ethos. It shows the world that you know what you're doing, that you pay attention to detail, and that you are someone who deserves to be listened to. So in this series of 3 videos, we're going to do 2 things. First of all, in this video, we're going to just have an introduction to Microsoft Word. Then we're going to talk about creating a table of contents. Again, not very difficult, but every legal brief that you submit has got to have a table of contents. And then we'll talk about creating a table of authorities. Why? Because every legal document that you create, at least every brief, appellate brief, is going to include a table of contents. So we'll take each one of those topics up. Okay, first of all, our introduction to Microsoft Word. We'll talk about viewing a Word document. We'll talk about formatting a Word document, formatting characters. And again, we're going from the specific to the more general. Formatting characters, then formatting paragraphs, then formatting pages and formatting sections. And then we'll talk about styles, a critically important aspect to all of this. And then very briefly at the end, we'll talk about publishing your Word document. Now, keep in mind that this video and the 2 subsequent videos are really introductory in nature. There's so much more that you can and need to learn about Microsoft Word. Here, for example, this is a Microsoft Word for Dummies book. Not suggesting any of you are dummies, but this is not a bad book to get that covers a lot of these topics. Now, there are better and more detailed books that I also own, but that is a good start. Another, while we're talking about possible sources and other books to make your writing look better, is this, it's hard to see it, I'll hold it up so you can see it, this book called Typography for Lawyers by Matthew Butterick. This is clearly a geek's guide to legal typography and writing. This is not something you want to curl up with on a cold evening before a fireplace, but it is something you want to have in your legal library. Again, it just is another aspect of paying close attention to the detail of what you're doing. So again, with that caveat that what we're talking about here is very introductory, and with a acknowledgement that there are other authorities in books, and also, of course, YouTube. There are many, many YouTube videos out there, many, many sites, including Microsoft's own site with lots of articles about these topics. With all that having been said as a prefatory matter, let's talk about these few basic introductory matters. First, let's discuss viewing a Word document, because there are different ways to actually look at the document on your screen and reveal and hide certain aspects, certain bits of information about the document. Okay, let's look at a document. We have to open up a sample document first, and what we're going to look at is a sample brief. This is one that I filed with the Louisiana Attorney Disciplinary Board. It's not technically an appellate court brief, but everything we're going to be discussing here absolutely applicable to an appellate brief. Or really any other document. First thing I want to talk about as far as viewing the document is the View tab. Note here that there's a View tab. And if you look at the View tab, I've got it in print layout, and I have expanded the document to page width. I've done that just so that it's easier for this video. I generally work at the level of not the zoom level, not of page width, but rather of one page. And but it's really all a matter of personal preference. But I think for our purposes, I'm going to expand it to page width. Also note that I'm viewing this on print layout. That's probably the best way to do it, because it replicates what your document's going to look like at the end. But having said that, and you know how to do this, most everyone knows how to work the basic page viewing approach on Word. But what I'm going to suggest that you should think about learning how to use is the outline view. And to get to the outline view, you come to here on Views and you click on Outline. What is interesting about this is you can see how your whole argument lays out. And if you want to only show the first line and really compress everything to get a good sense of how your headings are working together, how your subheadings fit in with your major headings, how your topic sentences of each paragraph looks, this is a really good way to do it by going into outline mode. And the other good thing about it is you can see what paragraph style is applied to each one of these individual paragraphs. And that's important for reasons we'll discuss in a future video, but a lot of people don't ever think about paragraph styles. But when you start to use them, it's important to get some sense of which paragraph styles apply to each paragraph. And the place to do that is here in the outline view, because you can also see the hierarchical organization of your brief. And of course, all briefs have got to be organized categorically and hierarchically, and this is where you can see the whole brief layout. So this is a really good view. You can also look at other views, like, for example, the draft view also will show you the applicable paragraph style over here on the left. In more ordinary format, that's another good way to look at it and see what styles or paragraph styles are applied. But it's important that you understand and begin to use these basic views. Let's move down to the character level and start there about basic formatting. And this is probably going to be the simplest and least useful part of this video, because you probably know most of this, but here we go. All right, let's talk about character formatting now. This I'm not going to spend much time on because it's fairly simple. The character formatting portion of the ribbon, this is called the ribbon up at the very top, is fairly straightforward. Keep in mind that I am using as my fonts Century School Book for headings and Century School Book for bodies. In legal writing, you're not going to use different fonts for headings and the body text, but you should always when you're formatting any sort of paragraphs, any sort of words, always use the theme fonts, because that way if you change the theme and the fonts, it'll change it everywhere. For example, right now you can see up here that it shows, well, I'll open this up and show you. It shows that I'm using the body font and the heading font. I'm not using a particular font down here. That's the way you always want to do it. So for example, right here, it shows the font as I'm using body font. Now, if I want to change that font to something else, again, in legal writing, you'd never do this. But suppose I wanted to change it to Garamond. Note that this is still the body font, and this switches to Adobe Garamond Pro. Now, again, that's not a best practice. What you generally want to do is just apply the body font everywhere. So that's what I'll do just to clean this up. I'm going to, and notice we've got, this goes black because we've got both body font and other fonts. So now it's all back, all is good. I'm using this. So again, if you want to change the fonts, generally in a legal document, you're almost never going to put in any particular fonts. All of your fonts should be body and heading. And to the extent you want to use small caps, or you want to use, that's really the only one you might ever use in legal writing, because otherwise you're pretty much just going to be doing regular, italic, and every now and again bold. But by and large, in legal writing, all you want to do is use regular font, is pick one font, use it as your body font and as your heading font. Make sure that you only use the regular size font, italics, and bold, and that's it. You should see nothing else by way of character formatting in your document. This is probably the most important part of the video, formatting paragraphs. I can say without a doubt, I spend more time on formatting issues at the paragraph level than on anything else. All right, let's talk about paragraph formatting now. Now, this is a key, basic, fundamental idea you have to understand about Word. Is you see this paragraph symbol, and by the way, you ought to turn that on in options so you can always see the paragraph symbol. The way this paragraph symbol works is a paragraph format is applied to everything from after this paragraph symbol to here. So I look at it as this is the little container that contains all of the formatting for everything that came before it in the paragraph. That's fundamental. So this is where you format this whole paragraph from here up until the preceding paragraph mark. And here is how you show and hide that paragraph formatting symbol. And again, you generally want to show it in all your documents. Okay, but you can open up the paragraph dialog box here, and this is how you could format everything: the indentation left and right, the first line. Now, notice how I have the first line indented. I don't have a tab here. You should never use a tab to indent the first line in a paragraph. You should always come here to the paragraph formatting box and then indent the first line. This is if I wanted to do hanging indent, I would do hanging indent here. But then you could set your indentations. Here I don't have any left or right indentations. Notice I'll have a margin, but I'm going to set that using margins rather than indentation. And here's where I'd double space or single space. I'd align it left or full justification. And you should generally not use full justification in legal writing. You can, but and if I want to keep some text together, I'm going to do it here with line and page breaks. This box, this paragraph formatting box, you can access here on the ribbon by pressing that, or you can just right click and, you can just right click and open up the paragraph box there. I can tell you, out of all the things boxes that I open, formatting boxes, this is absolutely by far the most important one. This is the one that you're going to look at this a lot more than the font box we looked at earlier. This is the most important of all, and you really need to become fluent with everything in here and how to keep text together, because it'll solve a lot of headaches that you might have. So that's basically paragraph formatting. It's all done right here, or through a right click to this paragraph box. And critically important to learn how this works and to use it regularly. Having discussed formatting paragraphs, let's go to the next highest level and talk about formatting pages. Now let's talk about formatting pages, and let's change the view back to the more typical print layout that you generally see. And the page formatting is generally done right here in the layout part of the ribbon bar, of the ribbon. And this is where you set your margins, your orientation to portrait. You're always going to be doing portrait in briefs and legal writing. Your margins are typically going to be 1 inch on each side to start. However, it depends on what the local rules or the court requires, but when in doubt, use 1 inch. Your paper size generally is going to be letter for our purposes in most cases, but it may be legal in depending on the jurisdiction. You're almost always going to have one column. So what's important here in the page setup part of the ribbon? Well, let's just open up the whole page. And it's important to understand that this is where you set the margins, the type of paper, and the layout. And again, it's important for you to understand that this is all going on in the layout tab. And one of the keys here is that everything is about formatting sections. Well, we'll get to sections in the next slide, but for here, just understand this is where you set your paper. This is where you set your margins. Also, when you are going to be thinking about formatting the page, you need to think about putting in, and you have to have page numbers. You do that here at Insert, Page Numbers. So that's where you do that. Anything else that I want to say about formatting pages? I don't think so. But again, the important thing here is that if you're going to do breaks, rarely should you do page breaks on the page breaks. You generally are going to be doing that with section breaks or using paragraph formatting to keep text together. So, okay, that's all I want to say about formatting pages. Continuing to go up to the higher level of generality, having discussed pages, let's talk about sections. Let's talk about formatting sections. Now you format sections, again, up here at the Layout tab under the Breaks subsection. So here are section breaks. You could start sections of a document at the next page. You can make it continuous. You could, and those are the only two you'd ever think about using in legal writing, at least for writing briefs. So let's talk about why you would use section breaks within a legal document. Let's scroll to the beginning of this document. Again, what this document is this is a brief that I did for the Louisiana Attorney Disciplinary Board. And notice that it starts with a table of contents. And the table of contents really kind of lays out for you each of the sections that I have in this document. The first section is the table of contents. The next section is the table of authorities. The next section is the brief. And then finally, I don't think I use this, a new section for the certificate of service, but you can understand that there are different sections. Now, the first section actually is going to be the cover page. The second section is the table of contents. And the third section is the table of authorities. And the fourth section is the brief. So why different sections? Well, because I want the table of authorities to always begin on a new page by itself. Well, for that reason, I could put, once I make the table of authorities a new section, I could have it break. I could have the next section start on the next page. And that's exactly what's happened here. Since table of authorities is a new section in this document, it starts on the page after this section ends. The other thing that you use sections in a document for is to make sure that is to change the formatting of headers and footers, particularly page numbering. Notice here that I'm using little Roman numerals, as is the custom for tables of contents and tables of authorities. But once I get to the first page, notice I'm back to regular Arabic numbering. How do I do that? Well, I do that by using different sections in the document and by changing the page numbering by section. So how can you tell that? Well, if we go to the footer down here, and now we're in the header and footer portion of the ribbon, and if you go to my page numbering in here, it shows that I'm starting at number 1 because I don't want to continue from the previous section. I'm starting at page 1, and the number format now is regular Arabic rather than little Roman numerals. So how do I do this again? I go to the header footer part of the ribbon, I go to page number, I format the page numbers, and now look, I'm not continuing from the previous section, I'm starting over again. So that's the important thing to think about by way of sections. You want to break your document into sections, and you want to be able to change the page numbering from the tables of contents, tables of authorities, and also, like for example, the cover is a different section. That doesn't have any page numbering, as is the custom for the cover page. So that is what sections are all about. And again, just by way of reminder, they are here in the layout portion of the ribbon right now I've got to get out of the footer. They are in the layout section under section breaks. And this is where you insert a section break to start a new section on the next page, or insert one to start a new section on the same page. Styles. Paragraph styles are without a doubt the most important things to understand. You can't understand Word at all without understanding how styles work and becoming truly an expert in styles. So let's talk about them. Paragraph styles. They are not well understood by lawyers. Few lawyers use them. Few legal secretaries use them. And it's astonishing that that's the case. Because I couldn't write a good legal document without using paragraph styles. Why are they so important? Well, because they keep the formatting consistent from paragraph to paragraph. If you need to change something in a paragraph or a type of paragraph, you can do it globally across the whole document rather than having to do it line by line, a paragraph by paragraph. So this is something that you absolutely have to learn how to use if you're going to be a minimally competent user of Microsoft Word as a lawyer. So what are paragraph styles? Well, let's go to just an ordinary paragraph in the document. We'll start with the very first one. We'll start here because we'll see different paragraph styles all right here in the same part of the document. How can we see paragraph styles? Well, the best way to do this is to go to View, go to Draft Format, and you can see over here the styles that are applied, that I have applied to each one of these different paragraphs. Now again, that's the print layout, it doesn't show you. The draft layout does show you. So if we go to the draft layout, we can see that I've applied a heading 1 style to this. I've applied the normal style to this, which is, as the style name suggests, the normal style. Heading 2 to this, heading 3 to this, and then back to normal for that paragraph. So how do I apply paragraph styles? Well, here is the portion of the ribbon on styles. And if you want to open that up, you can see, well, it's not opening for me for some reason. This is, when you click on it, you can see that these are the styles used in this document. Now the beauty of this is, once you get your styles all set, all you have to do is come here and apply the style. Like for example, if I wanted to change the style and make this like a footnote style, look, it's going to look like a footnote. If I want to change it back to normal, I just click it, it's back to normal. If I want to change it into a heading, it would be silly to do that, but here it goes. Look, it's turned it into a heading 3. All just by changing the style. So what you need to do is from now on, every time you're doing a Word document, is you need to, I would suggest that you put on this, because this is the way to learn how to do it, is to view the document as we are here in draft format. Notice the, and then become aware and notice the styles that are applied to each one of the paragraphs, and then start customizing them. Like for example, heading 1 is the way it is because, well, this is kind of a spoiler alert, these styles, paragraph styles, are the key to being able to do tables of contents. You can't do tables of contents without applying headings to your document. And so this heading is heading 1, and this heading is heading 2. Well, why is that so important for now? Well, number one, 2 reasons. Number one, it formats it the way I want it formatted. And look, this is formatted in bold and 14-point text. So, and I know that every time that I apply heading 1, I'm going to get exactly that type of font. How do I know that? Well, look at the paragraph settings. Here, let me show you. Here, this is set such that, well, oh no, let me show you this. I'm sorry. If I go to heading 1 right here, and I modify heading 1, now look, this shows you the name of the style, heading 1. It shows you the formatting, the font that I'm going to use in this. It shows that it's going to be Century School Book, 14-point, bold. And as far as the paragraph formatting, this is all set here too. So that's the key. In these styles, you're setting both font attributes, the way you want all normal paragraphs to look, and paragraph attributes. Paragraph formatting and font formatting. That's why styles are so important. Now, how do you learn how to use these? Well, just by doing it and obsessing over it. Once you change something in this paragraph and you want to keep it for all paragraphs, you know what you do? You go to Styles and you go right here to Normal, and you update that normal style to match the selection. So again, critically important that you start becoming aware of these styles, that you start changing the paragraph and character formats. And once you like them, you go up to the styles and you modify or update that to match the selection. Very hard for me to emphasize how critically important this is. But it's also, I understand, not easy to learn because you're not used to being aware of this. But you got to be in order to be a good legal writer. So what I've done is I think, made you aware of this. And I think you have to turn on the draft mode, start becoming aware of the style being applied to each paragraph in your document. And what the big styles I use, of course, are normal. That's the big one everyone uses. I've got a transcript quote style that automatically does a hanging indent here. You see, if I opened up the paragraph, I'm using a hanging indent to get that set up the way, formatted the way it is. And then notice, look, right after the hanging indent, I've got a no indent style. How does that differ? Well, look at the paragraph. It says indentation none. So I've got a no indent style. here is the heading 3 style. I've got a regular quote style. What's different about that? Well, that is single spacing, and I've got indented left and right. So that's the difference. And that's baked right into this style, right here, the quote style. Notice that, it's baked right into it. Indent left first, so every quote's going to be the same. The nice thing about it is if I want to change the formatting of every quote in the document, all I need to do is go here and change it right here, and it'll change for every paragraph as to which this style is applied. So again, those are the big styles that every legal writer needs. Quote, no indent, normal, transcript quote, and then the heading styles, heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. Now at the very end, I've got some different styles. I don't want to bore everybody with all of this, but at the end, I use just a kind of a catch-all cover style to, and here I'm still just in normal style to put this in, which is unusual for me. Usually I'd have a different style like I do down here, but again, there it is. So styles, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to learn these, because not only do they make your document look consistent, clean, but they also are the keys to moving on to discussing tables of contents. Now that you've done all that work and you've gotten your document in great form, it's looking good, it's time to get it out the door. Well, you can print it, but more than likely, in today's modern world, you are going to publish it to PDF. Last basic issue. Once you've finished your document, you can just hit print, file, print, and print it if you want. Obviously, that's something that you're used to doing by just simply printing it. But also, you have the option of saving as a PDF. You can save it as an Adobe PDF. You can print it to PDF. Microsoft Print to PDF is one way to do it. I've got Adobe Acrobat loaded in as an add-in. That's the way I do it. But you have to become very competent in learning how to use Adobe Acrobat to manipulate PDFs. But the starting point here in Word is just printing or saving as a PDF. And once you do that, that is the way most modern documents are shared nowadays. Rarely do people print documents to paper and put them in an envelope and send them along to opposing counsel or even to courts. Nowadays, almost everything's filed electronically or sent electronically as a PDF. So you need, I think most everybody needs Adobe Acrobat and have that as a plugin. You can see that I've got that here as a plugin, and I can do all kinds of fancy things with my PDFs. This doesn't come baked into Microsoft Word, so it's not absolutely mission critical, because you can still print the PDF here at this dialog box. So it's just the last stage after you finish your document. You print it to PDF, and off it goes. All right, now that we have finished our discussion here of the introduction to Microsoft Word, now we're going to move along in the next two videos, first to creating a table of contents, and then after that on to creating a table of authorities.